Hi, I'm Father Anthony Hannon from In Viam Pacis. It's really dark. It's really dark here. Well, my eyes are adjusting. I'm trying to find snowshoes. I've been stuck inside pretty much for a week because here's a good pair. Because I've been sick and I have a bit of cabin fever, so to speak. I need to get outside in the fresh air, and it's kind of cold. It's about minus, I think, 8 degrees Celsius. So -8, that would translate into, I think, about 17 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me see, -8 is 16. Let's see, -15, and then 32. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Things are dropping. What's that? Okay. It's hard to get around in the dark, I tell you. It's hard to get around in the dark. Okay, I've got my hat, my gloves. And as you know, I've been trying to get this fixed up for the retreat center, so it's kind of messy. Some of you are laughing because you know I'm messy anyway. Okay, oh, that's getting bright there. You want to go outside, Vicar? You want to go outside? Oh yeah, he wants to go outside bad. There you go. Okay, first things first, I'm gonna get my hat on. Sorry, I'm sorry for that. Put my gloves on now. I just have the camera on the phone on a selfie stick here, so. Okay, I'm bringing my snowshoes out. I'm gonna leave the walking sticks. Now, before I go too far, I have to check something here on the truck. I actually have come outside a little bit the last few days, my cold and all, just because the battery has gone dead. So sitting here, I think for whatever reason, I lost power in the battery. So I've been trickle charging it, and it's been on for almost 2 days. After 24 hours, I mean, it had charged a little bit, but now it's got the green light, looks like. But it's in the middle, it's not at the end. So it's charging. Must be pretty close to charged, so I'm pretty happy about that. Oop. Okay, let's see. I guess I'll put my snowshoes on right now, right here. Vicar, you happy? I've got different types of snowshoes depending on the type of snow. So these are really good ones. MSR, made in USA. I like that. I like things made in the USA. And I don't know which is right and which is left. Oh, this is right. And this is left. So I'm going to leave that right there. Can you see me? No. Vicar. Ah. That is left. Get that on nice and tight. There. Can't see. Ah. Vicar, you're anxious? You want to go out, eh? I know. He can't wait to get into the deeper woods. There's not much of a wind. Pretty much nothing. He's waiting there, playing. Get this on tight. There we go. Slip that back there. I think that's good enough. So, can you see my shoes? Ta-da! Okay, Vic, let's go. I want to thank everyone for the past week for your prayers for me, all the people who watched the last video, and all the comments, all the thumbs up, everything like that. It's really encouragement to me. Many of you are saying thank God for a holy priest and all that. Look, in your prayers, could you pray that I become the priest you think I am? Because I just want to assure you that I'm a long way from being holy. And then some are saying, oh, you're brave for talking about some of these things. Well, I don't know if I'm brave or not. Some people call me foolish, eh? So, but I liken it to Plato's Allegory of the Cave. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with that or not, but if you could imagine some prisoners So it's a thought experiment, right? If you can imagine some prisoners stuck in a cave from birth, and they're fettered such that they can not get up and move around. All they can see in front of them is the cave wall, and they're chained to another wall, and behind that wall, if you can imagine, there's a fire, and behind that wall they can't see it, they cannot see the fire, but there's people back there, and they're carrying on doing whatever they do, carrying different objects, doing whatever. And the shadow from the shadows from the fire are reflecting upon the wall, which these prisoners can see in front of them. And of course, they're even distorted shadows. But that's the only reality that they know. So they look at that dog. It's the only reality they know. So they start naming the shadows, and those shadows are real to them. Now, one day, one of the prisoners finds himself free, and he gets up and he looks around the corner. He sees the fire, and at first he's blinded by the light of the fire, but then eventually he starts to adjust his eyes. He can start seeing, and he sees what's happening. He sees like real people. He sees the things they're carrying. He hears them talking. It's not as even the sounds are not as distorted because the echoes in the cave and everything like that is closer to them. And he's like amazed, and he realizes what he thought was real was not really real. And then he wanders through the cave and eventually finds the entrance, or the exit to the cave, we could say. And he comes out there, and then he's blinded by the sun. It's way too bright. But then he starts to get used to, first at night and the light from the moon, and then dawn, and then eventually he can see outside, and he sees the amazing world that's outside. And he feels a moral obligation to go back to his people and to try to tell them that the shadows, what they think is real, is not real. So he goes back into the cave, and he goes to his fellow prisoners, and he starts telling them. But to them, he sounds like he's crazy, because the only reality they know is those shadows that they think are real, and in the wall they can see. And they get mad at him, and he's not understood, and they chase him away. Or they don't chase him away, but you know what I mean. Now, Plato wrote this Allegory of the Cave to explain why people were not getting Socrates, that Socrates could see reality for what it was, and others were following just mere shadows. And so that's kind of the way I see it right now in the world and the church. And I feel more obligation to share what I can see. Now, there may be a lot more I can see. There's undoubtedly, I just, freely admit that my knowledge base is very small. But I do want to give what I have for anyone who is willing to listen. And what I have, and in addition to, like I say, or complementing the most amazing gift of the holy priesthood, is all my recovery stuff. Over 35 years of recoveries, 12-step stuff. And this has allowed me to see things in perhaps a different perspective than others can see it. And for anyone who wants to receive that, who can receive it, I'm offering that. That's kind of my contribution. Now, speaking of contributions, because we can all get caught in just complaining and pointing out the darkness and pointing out all the things that are wrong in the world and the church and in others and ourselves too. We can also get into that trap a bit. We would like to do something positive, and I'd like to give a shout out right now to, I think his name is Bill Hunt, and he is a cartoonist, and he has a website called saintoftheweek.com, saintoftheweek.com. And if I can, I'll put a link in the description. I don't know if YouTube will let me do that, but if I can, I will. And I just want to go check it out. I told him I would give him a shout out. I think he's quite talented, and it's his kind of positive contribution, putting his gifts to use. And these videos are part of my outreach and trying to do something good as well. So I was thinking about the topic of this video, and in addition to just kind of explaining Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and you can look on the internet other people's explanation or go right to some translation of Plato's Allegory. I believe it's in his work called The Republic. But in addition to that, I'd like to talk about going from anger and fear into compassion and confidence, or going from anger and fear into confidence and compassion. Many of us are quite angry about the way things are in the church and other things. And, that's okay. There's a certain righteous anger, and the emotion of anger is not in itself a sin. But when we foster that, it turns into resentment. That can be a problem. It can be a problem, especially for us who have the resentments, because some of the things that we are resenting are not hurting, say, the persons or the institutions or whatever that we're resentful about at all. They're hurting us, though. Many of the things that we've talked about on my videos, I'm completely off the radar. And so that's another thing. When people say I'm brave or something, well, I don't know how brave it is. I mean, I'm really a nobody, so I don't think that anyone should be afraid of me. But behind the resentment is often fear. And it's the way that works is it's like resentment is almost like a defense mechanism, kind of maybe in some ways at least seemingly involuntary until we kind of take the steering wheel and take control of it. But in behind it is that I feel threatened in some way. I feel like my happiness or my success depends on certain external things changing or certain other individuals changing. And maybe it's hard to get our minds around it, but the other people really don't have control of my happiness or of my advancement in the spiritual life or anything like that. Nobody else has to change for you or for me to be happy. No one else has to change for you or me to become a saint. And but we have this resentment because it's like we think that someone else or something else has to change. Now, it's not that simple a thing to recover from codependency. But if you watch some of my other videos, I'm trying to explain this, how often we will have a resentment against, an alcoholic, for example, or someone who's overbearing in our life, or seems to be, I'm getting upset. So I like, why am I upset? Well, because so-and-so got drunk, right? Or because, so-and-so wants to say some authority in the church, is misusing his authority or something. There's really, look at the camera, Vicar. Look. Look up here. Look at the camera. Hi. Right. So I resent something or someone because I think that they're standing in the way of my success or me becoming happy or me becoming holy or whatever. And it's understandable that we're afraid maybe of it's hard for me to. So anyway, I think I'm having a little bit difficult time trying to explain this. Maybe I should just say that my experience has been that once I took my head out of the sand and I could look at reality for what it is and stop being afraid to learn about alcoholism, then I started to understand the dynamics a lot more, the family dynamics, my role in everything. And then I started not being afraid of the alcoholics in my life anymore. And then I didn't have to resent them because I realized that my recovery from codependency was not dependent on my relatives and friends who had drinking problems to get freedom from their own addiction. I could recover whether they do or not. And of course, I wanted to help others. I wanted to help my family members. So for a lot of them, I did try to get them into recovery. But there comes a time when I had to decide that I'm going to seek recovery for its own sake and for my own good, whether anyone else follows or goes along with me or not. And since I did that, and then I found a new freedom and a new happiness, then I don't want to go back there. And one of the symptoms, as I've explained in other videos, is denial. The addict or the alcoholic has denial about their own problem, their own addiction. And the codependents also will deny that, different stages, and will deny that a codependent will deny that we have a problem. I don't have a problem, they have a problem. And in the Gospels, Jesus talks about taking the log out of your own eye before you try to take the splinter out of another's. Well, it may very well be a log in someone else's eye, but can we at least admit that we have some splinters and kind of work on that? And yeah, all I can say is I found a new freedom, and then some of the things that are being asked of us to accept these days, it'd be like willfully going into denial. It'd be like that prisoner from Plato's Allegory of the Cave, who was free. He went back, tried to help people, tried to free them, tried to explain to them what reality really is. And they wouldn't listen to him. They wanted to kill him and thought he was crazy at the least. Well, he didn't go chain himself up again, right? You don't do that. Once you're set free, you don't go chain yourself up again. So that's why I say on a number of things, I'm not getting on board and I don't buy that and stuff like that. So I realize that for some, it might sound like I'm insubordinate or lack humility. But I just know, I just can see clearly. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna play along. So it's not really a case of me being brave. It's a case of me kind of having compassion for even those in authority who are maybe misusing the authority, maybe heavy-handed, or there's that fear that they would be or something like that. And I'm not afraid of them anymore. It's like, because they can't touch me. They can't take my happiness away. Nobody can do that. And I learned that first about the alcoholics in my life, and now I learn about it. And now I just apply that in other areas of my life. When I was in the seminary, one of the courses I took was called Pastoral Psychology, and the professor, Father Hudson, he very revered man, and he said something. I'm sure it wasn't original, but he said, "There's no such thing as superiority complex. It's all inferiority complex." You understand? It's all a mask. So when people kind of flex their muscles in terms of their authority, try to get you to shut up or something like that, try to get you to try to silence you or whatever, we need to realize what's actually happening. We need to, in our own imagination, maybe realize, no matter how old this person is, that they're really just like a little child saying, "I want it my way," and they have not yet discovered the freedom of not having resentments. So they may, yeah, okay. So I say something, I do something, say and do things with a clear conscience, but it upsets somebody else. So they get mad at me. And by the way, if you want to recover from codependency, that's just a given, because you're not going to be playing the games anymore. You're not going to be playing your role to keep, the dysfunctional system going, but you're choosing life. You're choosing life for yourself, and hopefully others follow. And it's repeat or recover. We're just going to repeat it over and over and over again until we recover and actually deal with the stuff. So when people get upset with me, they haven't found the secret yet. And I'm like, wow, they're giving me a lot of power. And imagine little old me. Sometimes, they're giving me the power to upset them. And then I kind of feel sad for them. So that's why I say, going from anger and fear, because fear is behind the anger, behind the resentments, to confidence and compassion. So I hope that helps, and we'll have to kind of work that out in future videos as I try to articulate this. It's kind of hard for me to kind of do these videos in some ways, imagining who might be watching it. And there's all sorts of people who are watching it. And by the way, thank you for all the thumbs up and all the positive comments, because I assure you that there are other priests watching my videos who sometimes they say they discovered my video or something like this. Someone told them about it. And, not every priest agrees with what I'm saying. But if they read your comments, they see that there's a lot of other people who, see the value in speaking of the things that I'm speaking of. So that's a very, very good thing. And the same thing with bishops. If they see that a lot of people, a lot of Catholics really want the truth, and they can read that in the comments, they see all the positive thumbs up, then, hopefully that will help them as well, help them, encourage them to also speak the truth. And so thank you very much. Okay, in the meantime, let's continue to pray for one another. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. In Viam Pacis. Into the way of peace. The truth will set us free.